if it is Saturday or Sunday and it is after a AEW pay-per-view or a WWE premium live event, it is more often than not Wrestling Night in America. I am your host, PWTorch contributor Brandon LeClair, and we are here to talk about AEW All in Texas, the third iteration officially of this show since they became officially a company. Of course, All In originally in 2018, sort of the precursor to the event. Long show, very long show. That's sort of one of the top stories here to discuss, but also a huge title change to close out the night. And I am not doing it alone, as you may have seen from the title of this video. I am to be joined by PWTorch columnist and longtime contributor, the one and only Sean Radican. Sean, thank you so much for doing this with me. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Brandon, how are you?
Uh, as we kind of talked about briefly in the quick pre-show meeting that we had, I am good, but man, that was a long one. We both kind of said we expected maybe to be on this thing by 7:30, and that was not the case. Give Tony Khan a 3 p.m. start time on the East Coast, and he will run with it. A 6-hour main card, making it an 8-hour show if you combine the 2-hour pre-show, the buy-in. So this was an old school WrestleMania type event in terms of length. Sean, we will run through this thing top to bottom, but let's start with the stuff that is most fresh in our mind, the main event. Hangman Adam Page defeating Jon Moxley in just over 35 minutes to capture the AEW World Heavyweight Championship for the second time in his career, freeing the championship from the clutches of the Death Riders and Jon Moxley, and finally removing it from that briefcase to an absolutely massive pop from this very tired crowd in Arlington, Texas. But that was enough to get them going in a really, really big way. I want to throw to you first, Sean. Anything you want to talk about with regard to this match and where you think it carries the company going forward?
Well, I've really liked parts of it, and then at the end, I thought it was just everything that's kind of emblematic about AEW and the things that hold them back from getting bigger, which is the finish with the hang. They've done that finish before, but it was just really Moxley really sold it in a particularly grotesque way. Not that it's ever pleasant, but it was just all I also got taken out of a little bit because of the shards of glass, and some of them were so big you could rupture a vein if you hit it on that. Some of them, I know Moxley grounded some of them down, but
whole bottlenecks this time.
Yeah, if anything ever went wrong, it's just so dangerous. Like, why are you doing that with that kind of glass? And it's just it boggles my mind that they had just giant chunks of glass in that bucket that got revealed. Was it Shafir that gave it to him?
Yeah.
But anyways, I thought the storytelling at times was great. The way they, it was just phenomenal storytelling. And then up until the, parts of the match really turned me off, and the end really turned me off with the hanging. And did not like that. I know it's not at the forefront of everyone's mind, but it's close to the anniversary of the Benoit tragedy, and people are going through those back issues right now, and I've heard that as a topic of discussion for several weeks. I know we're a few weeks away from out from the actual anniversary, but it's been in the I've seen it talked about, and the back issues are out. People are looking at them at this time of year, and I don't think they did it because of that, but
sure,
it's a little, it just didn't sit right with me, especially I know it matches up with their storylines. Hangman's gotten hanged, in the past, and so it's kind of like a mirror. But I think that's the type of stuff that really turns people off. That AEW has a hardcore set of fans, but they they have the potential to be so much more, but they stay kind of down in the dirt, so to speak, with this type of storytelling. I think that's, one of the things that ultimately holds them back is it's so graphic and violent, and there's such a dark vibe to it that, it turns off a lot of people, and there are people that like it. I'm not going to deny that. There's people that like that stuff, and they clearly have the audience there for it, but their buy rate should be expanding exponentially. Their attendance for their TVs and pay-per-views on a regular basis should be because it's been a good product. They have the talent. They've had talent break through. Like the stuff with Hangman's been incredible on TV, and even up to Collision with him and what they did with him and Swerve making up on the Collision the other night.
And the payoff tonight too.
Yeah, the payoff was so good. And then, but who are you going to show this to? Like, your friend that's into like what, hangings and blood and like,
yeah,
your sick sadistic friend. Because not only like there's violence and blood and guts, and then there's like a dark tone. And the AEW's got this really, the plastic bags. It's just like, it's like if they could, they'd try to simulate a death if they could. It's like that's where they're headed. I mean, it's just
they got pretty clue with Danielson.
Yeah, it was a maddening mix. And I didn't mean to be hit the M's there, but it's just like there was so much that you just want to praise about the storytelling in the match, and Darby coming back, and Danielson being a part of it, and Hangman's character, and Swerve Strickland, and everything. And then on the other hand, there's all this stuff that drags it into the mud. It's really frustrating for me because I just had a sick feeling at the end of the show because that's not the type of stuff I enjoy, and it's not the type of stuff that's going to grow AEW. But it's shown with the stadium full of people, and they've had a good year so far on they've had a pretty good year, I think, on TV overall compared to last year. At the beginning of the year, I was laughing. I was like, "How the hell are they going to put 25,000 people in a stadium with this Moxley stuff?" Which I still don't like it to this day. But they whatever. It's it was the landmark he set. He set obviously back last year when Danielson dropped the belt. It's just. It's the same feeling I've had at the end of other shows with similar endings like this. It's just like, why? You have all this storytelling. You could have people talking. You could grow your audience. You could have You could have people talking to their friends about the storytelling. And Hangman Page and Danielson's back, and there's this guy Darby Allin, and all these things that would really get people excited about. And I think, but if you go to show someone this match, I think like one of the things like, how do you explain all the? Yeah, it's just such a stunt show of the spiked board and everything, and just
and we're getting comments like that in the chat too. Chris Johnson, saying, why is there a bed of nails? Why are there tables with barbed wire? And I think that it's kind of what we have come to expect with these AEW death matches, and I'm largely with you, Sean. I'm torn because I think that this is the most joyous and hopeful I have been about the AEW world title picture in many months coming out of this show. I think that the celebratory nature, the joyous moment of seeing Hangman Adam Page complete his redemption arc in full, come around back to being the full-fledged babyface, the symbolism with, the returning to the old theme song tonight, coming out of the babyface side of the ramp. They didn't have tunnels tonight, but he entered from that left side of the stage, and they played into that, even having the camera kind of swerve back to him, expecting him to come out of the heel side.
Yeah.
There were so many little beats in storytelling in the main event that I really, really loved. And my thing is, and I wrote this in my report for PWTorch tonight as well, I I'm largely not okay with this style of main event, this hyper violent, over the top, egregious level of convoluted booking and interference and all of that stuff. Everything we got in this match. But if you're going to do it, I think that this was the situation that most confidently called for some of it. And when I say some of it, I'm referring to the copious amounts of interference and all of that stuff, because there are so many moving parts to this story, to the Jon Moxley angle, to the Death Rider story, to, them originally being this group that wanted to change the company for the better and remake it in their image. And then it sort of evolved over time into a more generic heel shtick, which I thought was overall better for presentation. But I don't think that Moxley in particular ever recovered from the point, the place that he was put in by having to carry that kind of angle last fall. It just fell flat on its face. And I've said on these post shows for several months that I would hold up this Death Riders angle at a similar level to what we saw in the throes of the MJF and Adam Cole angle. I thought that they made the AEW world title picture virtually unwatchable for the better part of the last
Close
8 or
to
so
it.
months. Yeah. And it's sad because so much of what else was happening on the show, the stuff with Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay and the Young Bucks and the Hurt Syndicate, I was really enjoying on weekly TV, but I was just so detached from the main event level, the world title picture. And so to know that we're finally past that we're finally entering this new era with Hangman Page, makes me feel good, makes me feel hopeful. I loved seeing, Bryan Danielson get his comeuppance or get his revenge on Moxley and the Death Riders. Darby Allin coming back. I'm not the biggest Darby Allin fan, but the way he went out, the way that he's been away on TV, people know he was climbing Everest, made plenty of sense for him to be a guy to come in that spot and get a nice little revenge moment. There's so many beats here that I really enjoyed. Like I mentioned, when you were talking, Sean, Swerve Strickland coming out and finally sort of making up with Hangman Adam Page, being the guy who, in the end, is the one that really causes the trigger to be pulled. He is the turning tide in this match. I loved all of that. But it's still held back. It's still dragged down, if you want to put it that way, by this hyper level of violence that makes this company inaccessible to a lot of people. And I mean, you hear a lot of people say that they're for the sickos, and this was, quote unquote, for the sickos. I don't know who else is going to want to go back and watch that. I have a high tolerance for gore, for blood, for that kind of thing. The Bed of Nails, to me, you're going a little too far. Not just because it's violent and it's striking to see, but because it's not believable. It's not believable to DDT a guy on a bed of nails. You're gonna kill him.
Yeah.
I mean, there's too many moments in this match for me that the natural conclusion and the natural result of perpetuating these moves is death. And I understand that it's a Texas death match, but it's pro wrestling. We know that people aren't going to die. So I'm with you. It's too much for me. Chris Johnson again in the chat saying, where do you go from here? How do you up the ante? Someone gets hurt or they'll be forced to back off. I mean, do you up the ante? I don't know that this was necessarily a step above what they've already done. It was an amalgamation of all of those things. It was, instead of just the hanging, now you've got the teasing, choking out, or suffocation with the bag. So they took a bunch of elements that they previously used and just put them all in one giant 35-minte match.
Yeah, it wasn't one shocking thing. It was 3-4.
Right. So do you think that they go further, or is this sort of the peak of violence? I mean, what
mean,
else can they really do?
this is about as far as they can go, I think.
You would think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure someone can think, because I can't think of more they could do off the top of my head to to make it more uncomfortable. I'm sure they could. I
Yeah.
mean, they could, they could stunt hang someone from the Tron, or I don't know, something like that.
Right. At Corey in the chat, I've got it up here on the screen saying the gore doesn't bother me. It just crosses too far past the logic line. And I think
Yeah.
that's where I lie. I mean, I'm a horror fan. You can show me gore, human suffering all day long. It doesn't bother me. But in the context of pro wrestling, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense, because you're not able to pay off the stakes, which is literal death, like we've already mentioned. So you can't pay that off. You're not going to kill somebody or pretend to kill somebody on television on a pro wrestling show. So it's diminishing returns. There's just only so much that you can get out of it and continue to ask people to suspend disbelief. Chris saying it just becomes a bunch of random spots for shock factor, and it does feel that way sometimes. I'm glad that in this sense that we've seen AEW shows in the past that have gone so heavy on the violence from top to bottom of the card that by the end you're desensitized and completely worn out to it. And I think there's an argument to be made that you could have been desensitized to it by the end of this 35-minute match, because it just started from opening salvo. But I do give them credit where it's due for not taking it to any sort of ridiculous violent level prior to the main event, because they have done that before. There have been nights where guys are just bleeding left and right in every single match or every other match. And tonight it was reserved for the main event.
They did that.
Yeah, because I've talked about this with other co-hosts on this show. I often find with these AEW pay-per-views that there seems to be a lack of communication between production agents and the agents laying out the matches, because so frequently you'll see either repeated spots or repeated stories told in the match. For example, you might have wrestler A working over the leg of wrestler B in one match, and then in the next match they'll do the same thing.
It's
And
like
so
the
it'll
agents
feel
don't talk.
right. It'll feel repetitive, and I think they've gotten better at that over the last few pay-per-views, and it was especially noticeable tonight. Every match felt like it was its own thing, and I definitely appreciate that.
I just think at the end, no matter how many qualifiers you put on it, it's just the bottom line is they're stopping themselves from getting bigger with this stuff, And just there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You just cannot grow with this type of thing. And they've squeezed just about every, ounce out of this style. In terms of they've done quite. I mean, for them to fill a stadium doing stuff like this is amazing.
Yeah.
They found this many people. They found this many people that like this style. But I think at the same time, those casual fans that fill up they don't do house shows, but that would fill out their TV tapings, and I'm not taking my kid to AEW if he's, what I mean? If he's under 10, if I'm gonna, I think if I'm an adult, it's just not something I want. Like if I'm just a fan that wants to go see a show, and I've experienced this on pay-per-view, it's not something I want to revisit.
And there's an obvious shift in company strategy when it comes to booking these live shows. I mean, they were putting on dynamites to 3/4 empty arenas for several months, and I think it was smart that they shifted to booking these smaller venues that they can pack out, and more often than not, I think the atmosphere lends itself to a product that seems hotter, which was a big problem for them last year when they were in these 3/4 empty buildings and everything was just echoing. I think
they had eroded some of the people that were interested in alternative, but just
Yeah.
could not stay on. It just year by year they had just eroded some of the audience that was with them with this kind of style of storytelling for their.
And I think it's important too not to undersell the idea that AEW was of course born as counter programming to a very stagnant and largely disliked WWE product under Vince McMahon. And WWE has had its fair share of booking issues in the last 6 to 8 months, but prior to that, when they were
Yeah.
really firing on all cylinders under Paul Levesque, the need for an alternative lessened significantly because you had a lot of lapsed fans coming back to the product, looking at WWE for the first time in many years and saying, "Yeah, this is what I'm looking for." And so they no longer needed to turn to AEW. And AEW didn't do themselves any favors during that time period either. So it was kind of a confluence of a number of factors.
It's not just this story. I mean, there's a lot of factors,
right.
But I think one of them is this type of
for sure.
Yeah, just different combinations of things that are going to drive a wrestling, someone that's a fan of all types, of styles of wrestling, or is open to, more than just WWE. I think they've driven them off with their, just the pay-per-view format alone. It's just this is crazy that that it went over 6 hours today, and then if you count the pre-show, it was on over 8. It's just it's something that Tony Khan isn't willing to budge on either. People are, you see people on social media, I'm getting my $50 worth, and Tony Khan likes to tweet. That's like,
I think that if you had a tighter 3.5 to 4 hour show delivering the same amount of matches or a few less in most instances, I think every AEW pay-per-view for the last couple of years or so you can look at and pretty easily cut 2 to 3 matches and create a stronger show overall. I think that's been the case for most of these events. And tonight, I'd say even if you don't cut a match, if you shorten at least 3 that I'm thinking of off the top of my head by 7 to 10 minutes apiece, you instantly have a much better, much tighter show. So we'll get into that as we march through the card here. Sean, anything you want to add about the main event before we kind of start marching through this chronologically? We'll spend probably the most time on the other 2 main events, and we can probably get through the other stuff relatively quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much more. I mean, I think I said everything. So, I mean, like you said, it's like you kind of said the only other thing I'd say, which is it's nice to see the page turned on Moxley's storyline finally, and Hangman Page's character has finished, this part of his arc, and you're kind of excited you are kind of excited to see where things are going, but the other stuff weighs kind of heavy.
Yeah, I'll add to that too regarding Moxley. I mean, I've been really hard on him for the last several months, and I'm a Jon Moxley fan by and large, but I think he's had a lot of bad matches against opponents that weren't necessarily conducive to his style. I think that he's been asked to carry a dud angle for a pretty extended period of time. And I think that there has been a groundswell of desire from the fan base for other wrestlers to be rotated into that spot. It started with Swerve Strickland and then kind of morphed into Will Ospreay. There's been, clamoring for Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada in that spot. And then, of course, eventually Hangman Adam Page. So I think that Moxley has done an admirable job at salvaging what he could out of this angle, and in the end turning crowd indifference toward him into full-throated boos. I think that was one of the big keys tonight, is that you saw Moxley get heavily booed, whereas in some of these previous main events where people did not feel like there was a chance that Moxley would lose the title, they weren't interested in booing him. They were just not interested, period.
Yeah. I agree. He did a good job of, doing the best with not. There's a phrase I could say that has a cuss word in it, so I won't. Chicken salad out of chicken bleep, but he did a good job. I just think, that guy if anyone needs a time off TV, it's him. He's just been
through absolutely
the ringer with just being put in. Anytime the company's needed him, they've put him in a big. Tony just leans on him in tough times, and and it's just be nice to see his character get a break after it. Just come back fresh, because I just don't really see any need to have him on TV going forward after dropping the title.
No, Jon Moxley, the man, deserves a break for his body, his spirit, the whole 9 yards, and Jon Moxley, the character, and the Death Riders as a whole need a break. The company needs a break from that faction for sure. All right, let's start marching through this thing chronologically. The show opened up with a video package, which we don't always get for these AEW pay-per-views. Thought it was well done. It was also really cool to hear one of my absolute favorite bands in the world, Manchester Orchestra. Their song Pride was featured in the opening video package. This is the second time that AEW has gone to Manchester Orchestra. The first was for the Swan Song video package for Sting at Revolution last year. So that was really cool to see. Popped me for sure to hear one of my favorite bands involved. After that intro, we get the introduction from Excalibur. We get a whole bunch of fireworks, and we learn that it is Nigel McGuinness and Tony Schiavone joining Excalibur for the start of the show. We get the Death Riders out first for their challenge to the AEW Trios Championships against the Ops. That, of course, is Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Katsuyori Shibata. This one goes just over about 14 and a half minutes. The Ops retain the Trios Championship. It ends with sort of a breakdown in the action with all 6 guys in the ring, and the Ops kind of clear the way for Samoa Joe to hit a muscle buster on Wheeler Yuta and cover him for a 3 count. The story here, aside from the match itself, is after the match, the Death Riders and Gabe Kidd attack the trio as soon as the match ends. They beat them all down, and then Claudio puts a chair over Joe's head and stomps it. Schiavone and the rest of the announcers really sold this as a big violent moment, and they paused the action and held the camera live for a while to let the stretcher and the medical personnel come in and wheel Joe out, which I thought was a nice touch, because I have lamented often about AEW's tendency to just breeze through things after matches end and try so hard to get to the next thing as quickly as possible. So I was glad that if they were going to have a big violent moment here, they let it breathe. Sean, what did you think of the match and the angle afterward?
The match was, pretty good. I like that it didn't overstay its welcome. I just felt it ended at the perfect time. I was starting to think, oh man, this is headed for 20 minutes when it ended. So they did the post-match angle, which was a little similar to something they tried later. So, but they went somewhere else with it, obviously later in the show. But it was at least it was good. The post match, the stretcher job on Joe and everything, and the serious of it. It was good, understated by AEW standards way to start the show.
That's a very good way to put it, and I said something similar in my report for PWTorch.com.
And that's saying a lot with the stretcher angle.
Yeah. I mean, the stretcher angle notwithstanding, after the match, I thought that the match itself was reserved for AEW standards. They typically like to come out of the gate really, really hot in their opener. Oftentimes, they'll open the show with a match that is considered part of the main event grouping
That
of
could easily
matches.
be in the 6th or 7th hour, I guess.
Right. So instead, tonight they kind of just opened with a match that was in an appropriate place on the card, I think, overall. I think you could argue that maybe the crowd is a little bit hotter if you opened with the men's casino gauntlet, but at the same time, there's sort of an unpredictable nature to that. And I think having just a straightforward trios match to kick things off worked pretty well. I don't necessarily have anything to add to discussion about the match itself. I thought it was fine. Like you said, Sean, kind of understated for AEW. The ops retaining the titles here, I thought, made sense, especially with the dissolution of the Death Riders as this big powerful force at the end of the show coming up later on. I was glad that they didn't put the titles back on them.
Agreed.
All right, cool. Let's hop right into match number 2, the men's casino gauntlet. This is for a number 1 contender spot, number 1 contender's contract for a future AEW World title match. We knew some of the entrants going in, a lot of luchadors in here, but we did know right out of the gate that MJF and Mark Briscoe were going to start things off. These two have been embroiled in a bit of a feud as of late, so that was a way to kind of build this match up in the lead up. A lot happened in here. I'll run through the wrestlers involved. MJF, Mark Briscoe, Ricochet, Bandito, Konosuke Takeshita, Mystico was in there, Josh Alexander, Anthony Bowens, Roderick Strong, Brody King, Juice Robinson making his return with a fresh look. We can talk about that a little bit. Kota Ibushi was in there, the Beast Mortos, and Max Caster was the final entrant. The finish coming shortly after Caster got involved. MJF, your winner in just under 35 minutes. Sean, I thought that this was fun in the early going. I thought there was a lot of stuff with MJF and Mark Briscoe to sink your teeth into. I enjoyed the stuff with Ricochet. I think he's done really good character work as a heel. I thought things kind of went downhill as this progressed. A lot of wrestlers that the crowd was not particularly invested in.
Right.
And a lot of sort of posturing and that typical Royal Rumble style, everyone is down and out for an unbelievable amount of time to allow for major spots and moments to develop with 1, 2, or 3 wrestlers. The latter portion of the match had its moments for me, but I did think that the finish came out of nowhere, even though I like MJF as the winner and I like the way they went about it. I mean, that's a tried and true spot that Mark Briscoe hit a Jay Driller on Roderick Strong. MJF slides back in the ring, tosses Mark to the outside, and steals the cover on Roderick Strong to win the match and win the contract. I'm not a fan of the Casino Gauntlet match as a concept. I think that it relies too heavily on the randomness of the whole thing. I don't like that wrestlers come out at random intervals. I don't like that there's this idea that at any given time, there's 15, 20, 30 wrestlers waiting in the wings to enter, but you don't really know who they are, but you also know that because it's pro wrestling and the whole thing is predetermined, that they're not going to leave anybody, that's of meaning in the back.
Right.
Just one time, I'd like to see them do one of these matches and have a really big wrestler not make it out in time, and they can turn that into an angle. And then at least you sell the stakes that entering late really puts you at a potential disadvantage because you might not make it into the match. To date, they haven't done that. I thought this was probably my least favorite of the men's Casino Gauntlet matches to date. It was fine, but just too darn long. This did not need to be 35 minutes on pay-per-view.
Yeah,
Sean, go ahead.
It started, like you said, it started well, but I was like so bored after a while, and I was just like, how is this going and going? And it was just seemed like random fighting, and then it just ended. And I mean, 35 minutes is ridiculous for a match like this. It just ate up time, and it did nothing. Like just people coming out at random, like you said, the random intervals.
Sean, if you started that match at the exact moment that we went live, it would just be ending right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's a crazy amount of time for it's kind of like a filler gimmick match,
A bunch of undercard guys too.
Yeah.
I mean, just so few wrestlers in that match that felt like they had any chance of winning. I mean,
it's for a world title shot too.
Right. I mean, you run down the list, and theoretically, I mean, who can you see walking out of that with a world title shot? MJF. I mean, I'll say let's give them the benefit. Yeah, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say like an outside sleeper, maybe Ricochet, Takeshita. Other than that, there's no one here who makes sense to viably challenge for the world title. So to go 35 minutes with a field that weak just seems a total unfortunate.
I thought it was kind of a waste of time on the show, other than getting MJF back on a good trajectory. That he's, it just seems like he's been lost since the debacle that was his storyline with Adam Cole fell apart.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy that should be a perennial main eventer, main event, star, centerpiece of the show. And boy, is he just kind of been idling around for a long time. It feels like since he came back, it just even felt weird that he would want to join the Hurt Syndicate. The Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah.
Just didn't feel like something that his character would do. I didn't get the impression that he was trying to pull a ruse on any of them doing it. Like in the past, oh, hey, what's he up here? It just felt like this guy just wants some friends or something.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just, I don't know. Like, how do you do that with Adam Cole not Adam Cole. How do you do that with MJF for so long? Adam Cole's a different story.
Yeah.
We'll be. I just feel like MJF's just like it felt like a generational talent to me for so long.
Yeah, they've got a lot of work to do to get him back
to
being a viable. Yeah, they've got a lot of work to do to get him back to being a viable challenger. Chris in the chat saying the gauntlet match was too chaotic. I'm with you.
Too many people.
Yeah, too many people.
I mean, 35 minutes is ridiculous. We don't need to be watching a show for 6 hours. Like, and all the people, the people. All I hear is we got our $50 worth. Thank you, Tony. I mean, wouldn't giving people their money's worth just be presenting the big matches on? That's what to draw the fans is the big matches on the card.
Yeah.
And the rest should be good enough just to get you there. That's all you have to do.
I don't think that with the quality of the wrestling at the top of this card, I don't think that if you're presenting a show that's an hour shorter, an hour and a half shorter, at least, that you're going to have anyone saying they feel cheated. Not with the quality of, the say what you will about the main event, and there are undoubtedly, like you and I talked about to start the show, Sean, there are plenty of legitimate complaints about the level of violence and how it holds this company back. But if you're just thinking in terms of raw fan service, the diehards, the hardcores, the ones who are making that comment about Tony's giving me my $50 worth, I don't believe for a moment that those people are going to feel any differently if the show is 90 minutes shorter and tighter.
It's like something that they're hanging their hat on as an excuse for continuing to do it. But like you just said, I think the opposite is true, that they could still satisfy all those people that, they love. I don't think anyone complained if they cut the shows down and to, three and a half hours instead of, the usual 4+. And I don't think anyone would complain as long as you kept presenting the, the 2 or 3 big, main events on the show. And so you could even still fit in one more on the undercard. And
right.
It just feels like, overkill. The stuff they put on this show, especially just the gauntlet matches. I mean, I could do without the 6-man title match was a good opener, but I'm just saying in terms of like building up a smaller card, there's stuff you can chop off, and I don't like. And then you're occupying people's time with more matches on a 2-hour pre-show. Like, why are you doing this? I mean, I super serving the audience is something that's never worked well. Like it used to. I used to hear it on the the indies, like the Ring of Honor shows being overly long on tape and things like that. We're super serving our hardcore. I mean, this is obviously on a scale much larger, but just that philosophy is never like. I feel like as long as you give the people the big matches deliver, and the rest of the stuff gets you there. I mean, who in their right mind needs more than 3.5 hours of entertainment, whether it be a movie, a wrestling show?
Right.
I mean, it's just that it's like WWE's on the total opposite end these days, and I have problems with that formula too. Just going.
Yeah, nobody's delivering the happy medium.
There's no. I mean, you got one company like that doesn't let a second of airtime breathe. You know what I mean? And and you have WWE, and there's actually a website dedicated to tracking their dead time on PLE.
Yeah, so presenting 5 matches in a 3.5-hour show. Yeah,
I mean, you could like the last one, you could have watched a full movie during the show.
Yeah,
there's like 1 hour and 40 at dead time, but just to focus on AEW, I don't understand why I gotta serve these fans. It's just this philosophy that's. I think they really believe they have to do it for some reason, like the management and the people around Tony, because they've just. I mean, this isn't a new thing. It's just getting worse on days like today. Where
it's just a foregone conclusion at this point.
I'll be honest, like I can tolerate the 4-hour show sometimes. But the idea to take it to 6 to 8 hours on a Saturday in the summer. You just don't need that much. You can't if you watch the show, you can't. What are you going to do after? Like you can't eat dinner with your family. You can't go to your friend. It's like over at 9 o'clock, right? So you can't. I suppose you can go out depending on how old you are, but I know some people start their nights at 9, but it just feels like a horrible time to end for like young kids. What are they going to do? Go right to bed? There's no time to come down to just for younger people. There's no it's just like it might be grounds for divorce for some men watching the show. The yard needs to be done, and you're in there at 3 o'clock watching the show all day.
Yeah, Chris J in the chat making a good point. Who wants to sit in a plastic stadium chair for 6 hours too? I mean, it exhausts the live crowd. I mean, and you see it. You saw it.
If this
you
show
saw it tonight.
I mean, you could never hold this show at Fenway Park. I've never been to the Texas Stadium, but Red Sox Stadium, they still have the same seats from like the 20s in there, and it's like it's just pure. It's like. I think the seating must have gotten better in these newer stadiums, but still, no matter what you're sitting in, it's not going to be comfortable to be sitting in a park for,
No.
I mean, if you take I just keep hammering on, people are bringing their friends to these shows probably. And it's just like, when I first went to wrestling, never in my wildest dreams did I ever think, imagine if someone brought me to a 6-hour pay-per-view or, or a 5-hour pay-per-view,
And I've been to some of those shows. I mean, I've been to WrestleManias that run 6 hours, and it's exhausting. It's an exhausting experience to be there.
It's okay once in a while. I could see it once, but it's like every show we go through this, and and it's just you're eyeballing the clock at the show. It's just like it's hard to wind down after this. Like if you're someone that wants to live on a normal schedule, like I'm trying. It's just every time I watch an AEW show, I can't get to sleep after because I'm just wired. Like probably because of all the stimulus from it. It's just and then you're kind of tempted to watch the post. The post show scrum and everything. It's just It's not good fan service. It's inconvenient for a number of reasons for a number of people.
Yeah, it's a significant commitment, whether you are, on the analyst side of things or you're just a fan watching.
I'm not even just talking about myself. I'm just talking in general about people keeping a schedule. I mean, I know I'm different.
Right.
I watch crap ton of wrestling, all week long, and I just, even if you just watch AEW, you've already got your Collision and your Dynamite this week, and and then they tack on this, and then at the end of this show, they say, "Hey, come back for Dynamite." I'm like,
I'm not ready.
No.
Azan saying maybe Tony doesn't want to undercut the locker room with not getting on pay-per-views. I mean, this is an issue that we used to talk about with WWE too, just loading up WrestleMania cards with everyone. And to me, I think that if you're in the position if you're worried about, for example, talent not getting bonuses for appearing on major pay-per-views, pay them anyway. If you're in the position to pay your guys, pay your guys. I'm always going to be an advocate for paying your talent, paying them fairly, and giving them bonuses when shows do well. But that doesn't mean you have to squeeze them on the card.
No, I understand. This notion that every talent has to get on every pay-per-view is ridiculous. Maybe if they decide whatever. I mean, All In is their biggest show right now.
Sure.
But since they went to Wembley, but I mean, is at the same time, is it fair for them to leave Britt Baker at home for ostensibly no reason?
And it forces you into a position where you're not seeing the delineation between the wrestlers you're signing. If everyone can make the special show, then the show's not special anymore.
I mean, I think that think about what he's done and what he signed a lot of ROH guys, a ton of New Japan guys. Now he's starting
massive roster.
Now he's not like he's got like all the top talent. I was watching Japan almost all in AEW, and the ones that aren't are hurt. He's got all of them. He's even got Gabe Kidd, the next guy that's supposed to be a top like doing goofy stuff in AEW.
Yeah.
And
all right.
But my point is, I think we live in a society where everyone gets a merit badge, and can you get little Joey on the pay-per-view? He hit a double, he was good on TV a few weeks ago. I mean, these people are getting paid.
Yeah, and they should. I mean, no qualms with that.
I mean, this isn't like the old days where if you didn't make it on the card, you starve the rest of the year.
Exactly. All right. So after this long debacle, we get a brief. Huh?
Where were we?
Yeah. We get a brief backstage segment with Stokely announcing that FTR is going to be on commentary during the tag title match later in the night. This was fine. I mean, I like the fact that they shot backstage for a bit. We usually don't get that on AEW pay-per-view, so nice little breath of fresh air there. Then we get Adam Cole coming out for a quick promo where he officially relinquishes the TNT Championship. It was announced earlier on during the pre-show, of course, that Cole would be out indefinitely with an injury. It was not specified what the injury was. Cole was very choked up when he was talking in the ring, and he certainly made allusions to the idea that this might be it for him. It was not clear, and he said he wasn't in the right headspace to make that kind of decision right now. But he was very, very emotional. The crowd treated it like it was a retirement, and really, if I'm being honest, so did Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly, who came down to ringside and shared a hug with him. As Cole was leaving, he also shared a pretty lengthy hug with Daniel Garcia, who was the first entrant in the upcoming match that would decide the new TNT Championship. That title officially vacated by Adam Cole. So we have a 4-way TNT Championship match. Daniel Garcia facing Sammy Guevara, Dustin Rhodes, and Kyle Fletcher. Daddy Magic it comes to the ring with Garcia and joins the commentary team for this one. Worth noting, Sammy Guevara, Dustin Rhodes, both wearing some Texas-themed gear, and neither man received much of any reaction when they came out. Kyle Fletcher coming out to some new music. It was announced that it is performed by the band Hot Mulligan, another favorite of mine, and they are also huge wrestling fans. So very, very cool for them to get a theme song for a wrestler on AEW TV. This one goes just over 15 minutes. Dustin Rhodes, a bit of a surprise winner. I think most people had Kyle Fletcher pegged as the winner here. I thought this was a prime candidate to be cut from this show. The crowd was absolutely dead silent. You could hear a pin drop through the vast majority of this thing. What I thought was the coolest spot in the match, Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia hitting a Spanish fly to the floor. Crowd didn't even pop for it. I mean, they were just completely disinterested in this. There was a respectful pop, let's put it that way, for Dustin Rhodes when he wins the title. Other than that, just complete disinterest from this crowd. My initial reaction, Sean, was to kind of be like, well, why are you not giving this win to Kyle Fletcher, the only guy in the match that has really shown any sort of promise of being a viable contender for a push up the card? But then I got to thinking about it and realized, you know what? The TNT title means absolutely nothing. And I'm not sure that it would be a step forward for Kyle Fletcher to hold that title. So I don't really care if you put it on Dustin Rhodes instead. I think Kyle Fletcher is deserving of something bigger than the TNT title, and so I'm fine with them going in that direction. What say you? Where'd you land on this thing?
Well, obviously it's really sad to see Adam Cole come out and make that kind of announcement, and having watched him for so many years, it's heartbreaking to see his lot of luck with injuries. Unfortunately, the AEW style is kind of conducive to a lot of folks getting hurt. And I just hope he's okay. I really hope he can come back, and hopefully it's not. It seems like something very serious. So,
and truly, just one of like the in a business full of people that are often very hard to root for, there are few people who are easier to root for than Adam Cole. And that's what makes this even more sad.
I don't know him well at all, but just I knew people around him when from covering Ring of Honor and everything. Just a great guy, People really love Adam, and it's a shame to see. It's just feels like he's got so many years left, and it's could get cut short. But just prayers to a speedy, recovery for him. Hopefully it sounds very serious. I thought that was one of the problems the match you had was you had Adam Cole come out, and you could have just put left the title for Wednesday.
Or Collision.
Could even run
for Collision.
Tony loves to run tournaments. You could run a Dynamite and Collision. You have a tournament party. But I thought what they did made sense only because it was like a happy ending for the local fans. For Dusty to win, you could drag out his nephews and the Von Erichs and give him a moment. I thought that was making the best out of a bad situation. The match itself was kind of just there. There's this, the scary part was looked like Guevara and Dustin really generally bumped heads when I think it was Fletcher that shoved Sammy. I mean, it looked like the back of Sammy's head went right into Dustin. I mean, it just looked brutal.
Yeah.
I noticed a little cut on his head, Dustin's head. So hopefully that wasn't too bad for him. But they just, like you said, they did that Spanish fly spot. Nothing much could get a reaction. But again, you just, you have people out there that the fans just don't necessarily care about. And I think Fletcher, you could just have Fletcher win that title if that was what Tony wanted to do. You could just have him win it Wednesday, on Dynamite. But like you said,
Azan noting that as well. I mean, Dustin can lose it on Wednesday.
Like you said that now they've got 4 singles. Is it 4 under the World Heavyweight? That the unified.
Well, they unified ones, so they're down to
Tony,
just 2
Tony said they
titles
could,
now.
But Tony said that the guy could carry all 3 belts and defend them or something like that as press conference.
No.
So why? It's stupid. It was really stupid.
You're calling it a unified championship, but you're not unifying it.
I got that impression that the lineage of all the titles would stay intact. Unless I just took his comments wrong, but maybe I hopefully did, but I'll have to look into it.
Really hope you did.
But
I've never wanted you to be this wrong, John.
I came away with the idea that the 3 titles would be carried together. So.
Let's hope not.
But anyways, whether or not that that they still have at least 2, they still if they unified those, now they have 2 singles, 3. What's
3 total titles?
TNT, the unified, and
the world,
which is about right, I think. For
yeah, I'm fine. That works for me. I'm
carried away. But like you said, that it felt like it feels like the TNT Championship, they had propped it up on pay-per-view and it meant something. It kind of felt like an upcomers belt, so to speak, like young and upcoming guys were holding the title and kind of advancing, hopefully falling upwards after losing it. We've had
hasn't been that for a long time.
No, I think Darby Allin was the last one that really had any measure of success with it coming out of it. Probably more due to his association with Sting than being the champion, but it's a title that means nothing. So if you want to put it, Kyle Fletcher came into the company, he beat Will Ospreay, and then he lost to Will Ospreay, and now he's kind of just another, periphery top, second tier, right on the periphery of the first tier type of player.
We've talked about this on these shows quite a bit. I find it really hard for guys like Takeshita and Fletcher to gain any real footing or momentum when they're presented on equal footing in the Don Callis family, and realistically they're at the same place on the card and should be going for the same titles. So how does Callis parse that out and determine who is more deserving of a title match?
They should be in their own state. They should be either on their own or leaving their own stables. It makes no sense to have them in that place.
Having 2 guys at the same level where you're clearly trying to define them at the same level just doesn't work.
It's just kind of like, that's kind of where Tony's enthusiasm or not enthusiasm, but his ability to really effectively book his talent kind of starts to dwindle down once you get to those guys. That's where his attention wanes. A lot of the big picture stuff got a lot better this year. I really like what he's done with Tony Storm and Mercedes Martinez. The women have been very
drastically better.
But again, he's only one person. He wants all the credit, and as long as as long as he's wearing 25 hats, it's going to be hard for him to really do well and be able to effectively book the Kyle Fletchers and the Takeshitas of the world. Especially, Fletcher should probably be main eventing by now. He just came in so hot. His whole, just his look and everything, it just blows me away from where he started, from when I first saw him to what he is now. He's just a totally different guy and looks like $1,000,000. And
the bench is loaded.
Yeah,
there isn't much room for those guys.
They got the best of Japan, the best of ROH, the best of Stardom, and excuse me, a lot of people just waiting for their chance.
Yeah. All right. So we after a sponsored vignette for Ospreay, getting some promo for Assassin's Creed, which was cool for him. He gets a big major pay-per-view entrance, which I thought they did a really good job of on this show overall. And get our first major match of the night, Young Bucks against Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland. This, of course, kind of a convoluted stipulation, but the idea here is if the Young Bucks lose, they drop their executive vice president titles. If Ospreay and Strickland lose, then neither of them can challenge for the AEW World title for a full calendar year. So big entrance for the Bucks here. It seemed they kind of swerved us. It looked at first like they weren't going to do anything special, but then they come out on their boat and they're playing this patriotic early.
They finally did something entertaining. Like I've been waiting. I've been waiting for them to progress as characters and do because they used to do so well when they knew something was getting stale. They'd change their characters and boom. Yep. But it just feels like, I don't know, for whatever reason in AEW they haven't, and I can understand, for whatever reason that I don't understand, but I guess, there's probably reasons for why they're not as cutting edge as they used to be. Their ring work has never really suffered, but their character, like they were always on the cutting edge of cool and popular and trendy.
Yeah.
And it feels like they got so far away from that. And I mean, they kind of got the Roman Reigns rip-off entrance music and but that was hilarious. Them, sailing the ship around the stadium with Justin Roberts narrating that. Their accomplishments as EVPs and
it was
defending the company against people like Swerve and Ospreay.
Yeah, it was a nice touch. It was a good little tongue-in-cheek moment for them. It's something that I think that those characters have been lacking. I like the notion of the founding fathers gimmick, and even as we talk about the outcome of this match with the Bucks losing their EVP titles, the founding father shtick is something that they can stick to and hone in on, especially if they're going to continue down this path as heels. I think that will work.
The whole thing of them abusing their power on TV was like, it was like so goofy, and then they just kind of got away from it. So them being stripped of their powers, like they really haven't abused those powers in a while.
I know. Yeah. So Excalibur. Excalibur had a funny little line there. He said, "You've heard of Washington crossing the Delaware, but we've just witnessed the Jacksons crossing the first baseline." The rest of the announcers got a kick out of that. So match itself, this one goes just over 26 minutes. It's Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland, not to bury the lead, getting the win here and stripping the Young Bucks of their EVP titles. Thought this was a really good match. I really liked the slow build where they sold the idea that the Young Bucks had an overwhelming advantage because of their history as a tag team relative to Ospreay and Strickland's inexperience teaming together. And it bore out in the way the match played out. I thought it was a smart way to lay things out and a smart way to piece this together, given how far above on the card Ospreay and Strickland are as compared to the Young Bucks at this point. Ospreay and Strickland were kind of working as a super team against a tag team who really hasn't been presented all that strong in recent months. So I thought it was a creative and fun way to tell the story. Small knock on this, it did kind of delve into the typical fodder of a Young Bucks match where you get just finisher spamming and this massive amount of crazy offense that should reasonably put any wrestler away. But to the Young Bucks, it's just another move. That's always kind of been my issue with them watching a Young Bucks match. You have to suspend disbelief to a certain extent, because so much of their offense is video game like, that they will do things mid match that you think should reasonably end any match, and never does.
Effortlessly.
Yes, completely effortlessly. Yes, good point. So other than that, I really liked this. Thought the right team went over. It's high time for them to drop the EVP gimmick, get it out of the on-screen persona of the Young Bucks. And Ospreay and Strickland needed a big win here. I mean, they've both taken a significant amount of losses in the last few months. To be it Ospreay against Hangman last month in the Owen Hart tournament, or Strickland against Moxley and the Death Riders, they needed a big win. And I thought it was a good way to rebound, a good way to show off the babyface relationship between these two wrestlers, and to preface what was to come with Ospreay and Strickland both getting involved in the main event. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, it was my favorite match of the night, probably. I like the style.
Okay.
I like the style of wrestling, and I thought it worked here that the announcers actually sold it as what's going to put these guys away. And I understand, it's always been a case of your mileage may vary when it comes to the Young Bucks, and so with a lot of people. And it was a really good. I just thought the 4-way sequences where they're throwing super kicks, and then Ospreay and Strickland hit the house call and the hidden blade at the same time was particularly good. The finishing sequence on Nick, the house call and hidden blade at the same time, you would think Ospreay and Strickland had been teaming forever. The way they finished off Nick in the end there. Not too many bad things to say about this. This was one of the matches I just really enjoyed and didn't have a lot of critiques to say, even though I was even at one point. I'll admit I was starting to think, what's going to end this? It's
yeah.
But so I like the style, but it does. This was very heavy on the what is going to end this. This was really good, and like you said, it also set up what played out in the main event between those two getting involved.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention, as I'm bringing it up as well, good to see JoJo. For those that didn't see the show, JoJo Offerman was brought onto the stage after Will Ospreay's entrance, and she served as a precursor to Swerve Strickland's entrance. She didn't actually, accompany him or play him to the ring, but she performed a rendition of "Ain't Nobody," which, if you're familiar, Swerve Strickland used to use as a theme song back in the day. And Strickland came out to his regular Swerve's House theme after that. But cool little moment there. It seemed a little random at first until I realized what she was performing. I don't know the connection between her and Swerve. Do you, Sean?
She's cheaper than Chaka. Was it Chaka Khan who sang that?
Well, yeah.
I don't know if there's. I'm not aware of it. I mean, she's probably knows him, but I wasn't aware of any kind of relationship.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was something I had missed.
I don't know if they're friends. Maybe they're friends. I know she's been a singer for a long, trying to get that part of her career on track. But I thought Tony paid an awful lot, paid a lot of money to get the rights to that song. Have someone else sing it. That was my only thought. But
he does, and I appreciate this about Tony. I mean, when a situation calls for a song, when he thinks that it means something, he will usually go out of his way to spend that money, and I think that's good. I think it's. We talk a lot about fan service in the negative to start off the show. I think that is a fan service tendency in the positive that Tony exhibits.
Yeah, I was trying to remember what pay-per-view used Machine Head, so I never got around to Googling it, but there was a pay-per-view a long time ago that I think used the Bush Machine Head, and
they've used it for All In previously.
Oh, have they? I thought
yes. Yep.
I thought it went back to even another, not just that.
It may. I'm not sure about that, but they have used it for All In previously.
Being a big Bush fan back in the day, it's
Yeah,
always good to hear that song. It's a good, definitely a good wrestling. Definitely good for, especially with a lot of the themes I hear these days that are just these generic songs.
for sure. Brock Benningfield saying WWE can take notes. I wish they use licensed music more. Same, especially when we're getting Def Rebel themes. I certainly wish that they would splurge a little bit on that. All right, let's keep marching on here, Sean. Match number 5 was the women's casino gauntlet. Winner gets an AEW Women's World Championship match at a later date. Megan Bain and Chris Statlander starting this off. I'll run through the list of competitors. Willow Nightingale was out next. Tekla joined, followed by Julia Hart, Queen Aminata. We had Mina Shirakawa out there. Then we get a fairly significant break in the entrance before Thunder Rosa joins. Then we have a back-to-back entry with Shiuri and Alex Windsor. Two sort of debuting talents. I know that Windsor has appeared on AEW TV before, but has not been highlighted in a way that she was tonight. And that rounds out the entrance. Athena is your winner. I may have missed Athena in my list here of entrants, but Athena was there in the middle between Shirakawa and Thunder Rosa. Athena's your winner. She does so in just over 27 minutes. Cool little spot. It ends with Mina Shirakawa catching Thunder Rosa with a back fist and then locking her into a figure 4. Looks like Shirakawa might be poised to win when Athena flies into the ring and hits Shirakawa with the O-face and covers her to get the victory. I'm a big fan of Athena pulling this one out. I have been perplexed for many, many months, wondering at what point, more than months, I mean years at this point, wondering when Athena was going to be brought into the thick of the main roster title picture. It seems like AEW could have really used her at a time when the women's division was weak. And it's odd that now that it's the strongest it's ever been, it's when they finally decide to heavily feature her. But I'm not going to complain about the win. I'm just going to celebrate the fact that it is finally happening. I did think that this was better than the men's match earlier in the night, but it still suffered from a lot of the quirks and sort of heavy-handedness and convoluted booking that I think these matches have just in general. I could have done, like the men's match with this being several minutes shorter. Sean, what did you think?
I thought it was more crowd pleasing. They had some surprise women come out. Shuri, Alex Windsor, Harley Cameron came out to get some revenge on Megan Bain at one point, which was nice. So I thought in that way it was. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the match, but I thought at least it carried some excitement for the crowd, which I didn't think they were all like that excited about the men.
No, not at all.
I feel like they felt maybe a lot like it feels like the women are more established, so more of them seem like possibilities to potentially win. They have more women, they have more credible women in the match, so I thought that made it a little more palatable in terms of suspense. But again, it felt like it went a long time, and definitely could have gone a little shorter. But it was all right for what it was. I'm glad Athena won. I really don't understand what she's been doing, kind of exiled to ROH, which makes no sense to me. Someone with, WWE experience and someone who's clearly has a good creative spark. Just has made no sense. I'm sure Tony has a reason. I don't know what his reason is, but on the surface, without knowing the situation or what's going on there, I don't think I've seen anything really reported about it that I've heard of. I mean, I've watched.
It's really been one of the company's biggest mysteries.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a pretty good job of keeping a lid on things since the Punk debacle, so not a ton gets out. But it just seems so strange to me. She's another one I've watched since the Indies and having watched her all across, different companies like AEW and Beyond Wrestling and other companies, it just makes me. It's like the fans clearly want her because they react to her like she's like, basically the reaction like, yeah, you're out of jail.
Yeah. BJF in the chat saying he doesn't watch Ring of Honor. I don't think many do, but have heard good things about Athena. She's come a long way since the Ember Moon days, certainly. I mean, there's no question that I think WWE could have done more with that character, but she's really flourished and grown into something much bigger and better since joining AEW. Unfortunately, like we've kind of been talking about, she's been relegated to that secondary brand for what seems like no real viable reason. And I think there would have been better times to pull the trigger on her than right now, given how crowded the field is now in 2025. But I'm not going to complain about them finally pulling the trigger. I think she's a really good talent and a good hand to have there at the top of the card. So I'm intrigued to see what they do, especially a matchup with Toni Storm. Unless she holds on to that contract for a while and does something further down the road with a different champion, if that's the direction they go. Sean, let's keep marching forward here. We're almost at the two main events that we have left. This next one, Excalibur tosses to a video package for the AEW World Tag Team Title match. We have FTR heading to the ring first with Stokely. Excalibur said that it puts Tony Schiavone in a precarious position, and FTR kind of playing nice with Tony, even though they tell him to shut up a couple times. Thought FTR was a bit strange on commentary during this match. They largely acted like baby faces, even though they're definitely heels. There was a lot of concessions made to the other teams in the match that I didn't think worked particularly well, given the characters that they're playing. Hurt Syndicate comes to the ring. They get a pretty good reaction, much bigger than the other two teams here. And this one runs too long, just second shy of 19 minutes. Hurt Syndicate retains the tag team titles after Lashley spears Christian Cage and covers him for a 3 count. I don't have a ton to say about the match itself. I want to treat the post-match angle separately, so we'll talk about that afterward. But Sean, this felt bloated to me. I didn't buy Cage and Wayne and Jet Speed as credible challengers to Lashley and Benjamin. I think that's been a problem with all of the Hurt Syndicate's title defenses so far. It just doesn't feel like these tag teams are at their level. And the way that Lashley and Benjamin are being booked, which I like, it's very different for the way that Tony typically books anyone in AEW. You very rarely see acts that are this dominant, and especially for this long. But I think that it creates a really challenging circumstance for pay-per-view title defenses, because as they continue to get wins under their belt against these less credible teams, it seems like the match length increases. And here, they seemed really hell-bent on giving you a ton of 2-on-2 action between Wayne and Cage and Jet Speed, and leaving the Hurt Syndicate out of it to protect them from taking a ton of offense. And to me, the crowd just isn't invested enough in those two teams to warrant giving them that much time on a bloated show.
No, this was just average at best. It wasn't anything good. If you have the Hurt Syndicate in the match, the shorter the better. Tony talked about this a couple months ago before Double or Nothing about having to rebuild his tag division, and clearly that's still something that he hasn't addressed yet, because, like you said, it's Hurt Syndicate are dominant performers. They're WWE sized, so to speak. They're a lot bigger than these these cruiserweight body types that these other guys have, for the most, not Christian, but the 3 of the other guys in the match, and Christian's not the most gigantic from a physique standpoint, but Benjamin and Benjamin and Lashley are big guys. And,
it's crazy how big Benjamin looks consistently in
Yeah.
AEW as opposed to WWE.
Yeah, he's huge. And so you've set up where the other teams just don't look credible from a physique standpoint. You've got these two bodybuilders as your champions that are dominant. So it's not the greatest fit when a lot of your company is built on smaller guys that wow the crowd, and you're pushing a dominant tag team, heavyweight tag team, and you have no heavyweights.
Right.
Well, you do, but you just don't have you just haven't put together. I mean, what he's going to have to do is book a heavyweight team to beat them, pretty much, to make it credible.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah, and we'll get to that here in a second because of the post-match angle. I mean, Chris leading us into it in the chat. Pointless match, but the return of Cope and the Nick turn was nice. So let's get into that. After the match, we have a bunch of action. There were so many wrestlers not in the match involved in this thing. You have Nick, Kip Sabian at ringside, Mother Wayne at ringside. You have FTR doing their thing, MVP jawing with people, MJF jawing with commentary and with FTR. So there was a ton going on outside of the match itself, which I thought took an already mediocre match down a couple more pegs, just because it was too chaotic and overbooked for my taste. So after the match, you have FTR sliding in the ring and looking like they're going to attack Christian. This is happening, of course, because the finish saw Lashley push Christian Cage into FTR, who had jumped up on the apron to interfere. So now we've got this issue between Cage and FTR. So Nick Wayne slides in the ring to protect his father, but he winds up turning. He gives Christian the kill switch, and we are officially on the road to a babyface turn for Christian Cage. So we quickly learn that Nick Wayne and Mother Wayne or Mother Wayne and Kip Sabian are in on this as well. They join in on the beatdown. FTR gives Nick a couple of steel chairs, and they set up the concerto to take Christian Cage out once and for all. Of course, they're telegraphing what's about to come. I think everyone in the arena knew, and everyone watching at home knew, that this would bring out Adam Copeland. And it, of course, did. I thought it was a very WWE moment to require Copeland to go through his entire entrance shtick before running to the ring to save his former best friend. But they had to do it. I get it. It's a big crowd moment. They wanted to have the celebratory moment of Copeland coming out and the crowd getting to sing Metalingus and all that good stuff. But, I mean, come on. Logically, it's really dumb.
This was a mess the whole way. This was stupid.
It was.
This was... Go ahead, I'll let you finish.
Copeland runs into the ring. He clears the ring of everyone, just beats them down. He's got his spiked bat when he comes into the ring. And we get our first moment that is going to inevitably lead to the Copeland and Christian reunion. Cage helps Christian to his feet, and he's got a microphone in his back pocket, and he repeats or starts to repeat the line that Cage said to him when Copeland first arrived in AEW. And he, instead of the profanity, he says, "Go find yourself." He lets Christian fall back onto the mat, and he leaves the ring. It's a little cringy, but, I am willing to give them a pass on that part of it, because I think that if Christian and Copeland want to reunite as a tag team for a final run in AEW, they have earned that right. They have had the careers that, to me, justify their ability to make some calls on how they want to go out. And I think that logically, in a segment and a situation as a whole that lacked logic almost every step of the way, I appreciate the fact that this was just not sunshine and rainbows for Cope and Christian right out of the gate. Adam, was very clear. He doesn't like the person that Christian is right now. So he says, "Go find yourself." I thought that worked. It's a little cringy, but it works for what they're trying to do. And I think that ties us back, Sean, as you said, the Hurt Syndicate needs a heavyweight tag team to really step up and put them in a real main event type position for those tag team titles. And I think that Copeland and Christian can be those guys if they want a marquee tag team match. But before they get there, we're going to have to do the FTR thing for a while.
I mean, logically, this made no sense to me. It seemed like you had FTR set up for the Hurt Syndicate, and then they get in the ring. Why do they want to attack Christian? Who knows? And then just
because he knocked him off the apron. I mean, that seems to be that's the catalyst.
Yeah, that's true. But but just by happenstance,
right?
The other two, Sabian and Nick Wayne, make the save, and then what if things didn't work? It's like everything's going to work out perfectly to get to that moment. What if they were, disposed of, and would FTR just laid them out, and then they couldn't turn on them? I know I'm thinking deep for wrestling, but I think this violated the suspend your disbelief credo or proclamation on the wall of the rule. But the thing that really overdid it for, I know you said that you talked about Cope's entrance and giving him that moment, but I texted Rich Fan. I said, Rich, imagine if you were about to be decapitated and I came out and I went and pumped my fist to both sides and then I hit my entrance pyro and I did my, I did the.
Did he say he'd forgive you? Because you get the moment in front of the crowd.
He just laughed at it.
You gotta play to the crowd, man.
I just it's just one of the things that drives me crazy in wrestling is I forget they were about to put the bags at the end of the Dynamite. They're about to put Moxley and the Death Riders about to use the bags when Swerve came on the thing, and they just totally stopped. Yeah. They're like birds distracted by food. They're like the zombies in The Walking Dead when they hear a noise and they heard another way.
Yeah.
But this just bothered me, just the whole thing, and it reminded me how stupid FTR's turn was on Copeland. It just made no sense to me. A lot of it just felt illogical. They could have done a lot better job. I guess maybe all would be forgiven and forgotten by fans if they set it up where, Adam Cope and Christian have some work to do. That made sense, so they went to they had this like dude bro talk therapy moment between them with go find yourself, like the end of like the old WWE straight to DVD movie, and you had that moment and between them, so at least that part makes sense. That he's not just going to be his friend right away, but he doesn't want to see his old friend get hurt, so he comes back to save him. But just the hoops you have to jump through to get through all that post-match stuff, it made the title match seem totally meaningless.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was all building to this return.
But actually, a lot of it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say it made it especially egregious that they let them go 19 minutes for just to just lead to this. I think a lot of the stuff you're outlining, Sean, is showing Tony Khan getting himself in another situation where the inmates run the asylum, and you're looking at a situation where you can look pretty plainly at this and say, okay, Copeland probably wanted to work with Christian before they shut it down. So okay, we've got to find a way to make that work, and then Copeland is best friends with FTR, so Copeland wants to work with FTR. Okay, well, we've got to find a way to make that work. So they're having to shoehorn things together because it's what the wrestlers want. And sometimes that works, and maybe it works out for the better in the end, but more often than not, especially in AEW, the road to get there is very convoluted.
I think as convoluted as it was, they can get to where they want it because, like you said,
I do too.
Christian Edge solves the problem of a credible team. And if I don't really want to see a heel versus heel FTR Hurt Syndicate feud, but if you wanted to do that match, you could.
And the crowd's going to treat the Hurt Syndicate as baby faces anyway.
Yeah,
they always do.
Yeah. But I think in this case, as much as it drove me crazy, all the illogical stuff, I think it'll get them to where they need to go eventually. Just I wish Tony delegated someone to edit this stuff and make it, make it make more sense than it does. Because I mean, I get it. You want that pop, and he's coming out. He's got he's got to hit his pyro, but man, it just looks so bad when he's sitting there about to get concertoed. Mm-hmm. But I guess I mean, if they get to where they need to go, I mean, it's just another example of Tony not having the time and energy to sew up ends beyond the big stuff.
Yeah. All right, we're at our final two matches. We've already, of course, talked about the main event. If you joined us late, you can go back on demand to catch our thoughts on the main event between Hangman Page and Jon Moxley. But we do have the other two undercard main events to cover. First of which is the AEW Women's World Title match. Toni Storm with Luther defending against Mercedes Moné. This one going 25 minutes. Toni Storm retains the Women's World Championship after an Avalanche Storm Zero puts Moné away. This was my favorite match of the night, and I don't think it was perfect, but I thought that they really elevated the Women's World Title to a main event level for what I thought was only the second time in company history. There have been two matches so far where I felt like the Women's World Title match truly felt like a main event, and that was here and back at Revolution with Toni Storm and Mariah May's company departing match. So this one, like I said, going 25 minutes, I thought they told a really, really compelling story. Moné has been on a tear in these title defenses and now title challenges on pay-per-view. I think that for a character and a contract that maybe seemed like not a mistake, but an overpay to begin, I think that has really come around, and Moné has unquestionably elevated the division and elevated Toni Storm here in this match even higher than I think Storm was, and that's a testament to both women. I thought that the comedic spots here were timed well. I think Toni Storm has really, really improved on her ability to turn on the seriousness when the situation calls for it and work the humorous moments into create moments of levity in otherwise serious matches versus what she started out doing with this character which was just basically playing the gimmick all the time, doing the stuff for comedic effect from start to finish. She doesn't do that anymore, and I think when she picks her spots, they tend to work really well. I just really liked the back and forth action here, the number of roll-ups, submission attempts, everything. I thought it was really hard hitting, well paced, really good story. Sean, where do you fall here?
I just thought, I don't know if I need to give it another look. I thought it was good, not great. I just, I was feeling seriously fatigued when this match came on. Like I hit a total. I'll be honest, I hit a total roadblock. I watched the match. I mean, I'm not sure during that time if I could have enjoyed, anything.
I don't blame you.
I thought it was good, not great. I thought in spurts I enjoyed it. I thought they started out hot, like you said. The comedy, I really enjoyed. Storm doing her dance early on. I thought that was a cool moment, kind of humiliating Moné, and the crowd really ate that up. Mm-hmm. I like the finishing stretch a lot. I don't know why. I just was expecting more. Maybe it's just because of when it took place in the show for me, and it was just I didn't think it was bad by any means. It just I I just had it very good. So that might be one I want to give another look at.
And to put it into perspective, lengthwise, when this match started, I believe it started like at around the 3:45, 4-hour mark of this show. So we were already at a point where we should be gearing up for the main event, and we're sitting there knowing that we have 3 lengthy matches still to come.
I mean, I even have that in my
It's a tough
notes.
set.
Like my fear of sitting through this and another 2 epic matches is and being able to enjoy them was pretty high at that point in the show.
Yeah, a very, very, very tough sell.
Like I was thinking before the show, though, I'd like to see them in the main, in the main event spot.
Yeah.
I don't know why they. I mean, I get the death. I guess I get why the death.
Sure.
Call John Moxley the Death Rider now, but why Moxley? I get why Moxley and Page, main event it, but I'd like to see this. I wouldn't mind if they main evented with this. I think Monet's
if they go back to it in a rematch, I think it should. I think that they need to pull the trigger on having an epic women's title match close the show. It should have happened at Revolution, especially in hindsight. After seeing how that show closed versus what they could have had with Storm versus Mariah May, absolutely should have closed.
I think there are 2 pay-per-view matches where Mariah was it Mariah? Oh God, am I going to say her name right? Mariah May and Toni Storm, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm thinking of Harley Cameron for some reason too.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, don't say the wrong name. Don't say the wrong name. Like those 2 pay-per-view matches they had were both incredible. And I don't know. I don't see that being on that level. Did you think that this was as good as those? I just thought those 2 matches were incredible from a storytelling standpoint, and the match, like just action and overall storytelling. I just didn't think.
I'm probably with you. I would probably have this a notch below that. I wish that the really bloody encounter at Revolution had been longer, but I understand because of the way they laid out the match and the level of violence that they were going for, it made sense that it had to end, in 12 or 13 minutes, whatever they went.
Yeah. I just thought those 2 matches were really, especially the first one at was it All In last year? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
All In in London. Just this, I don't think the storytelling supported, like for this feud. I don't think the storytelling has been to that level, but
but definitely not.
I mean, but that was months and months, and this felt like more like 2 major stars colliding, and it was really good. And I just wish, like not to beat a dead horse, but I wish these companies, like especially AEW, would book these women in the main event more often.
Yeah.
Especially
I hope that we,
you have such a, I guess, he doesn't, I guess, like Tony wouldn't want to like give the impression that he's giving in to the fans that don't like the John Moxley angle by taking him out of main events. But you could, God, set the precedent sometime that the women can they deserve it, especially Toni Storm. It's like, it's like a generational character almost, once in a generation type character she's got going, and she just lost her greatest rival. So you got to figure out a way to make one of these other women match up with her and squeeze as much as you can out of her. I don't think they've found that yet between, I'd like them to have a more serious edge, in terms of if they're going to carry this. I hope they carry. I'm sure they'll go back to this match again in the future.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it more serious. They had this is their first encounter, and it was good for a first encounter, but build the story between, have something about this match, the outcome of this match change. I don't want to book it out, but make it into something compelling story wise as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. As much as I liked this, I think that they left some on the table, and that there's room there for something bigger and better the second time around.
Yeah.
Getting just a few comments here from the chat. Paul Padron saying excellent match, and but thought Shivani detracted from the match by calling them girls. I didn't pick up on that, but I tend to not like most of Shivani's commentary in these shows.
One of the problems is that the lingo backstage is the boys and the girls, and that bleeds into like
Yeah.
I used to do it sometimes talking to Wade, and he'd get really mad. Because I would talk to so many people like that. Talk
right. Corey Dallas standing saying Storm Monday match was good, but I was pretty burnt out by then. So just like you,
like Sean, you said, I think you hit it perfectly. It was hitting right about when other shows would be just about ending or in the midst of
or getting into the main event. Yeah. So let's speaking of main events, let's get to ours. Last one that we've got to cover here. It's a title unification match, or at least we hope so. Sean dashed my hopes a little while ago, saying that Tony may have hinted at the idea that they can be defended independently, but I really hope that is not the case. This was a AEW Continental and International Championship unification match between champions Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega. Okada had Don Callis with him. Omega had Kota Ibushi in his corner. Both of them got big pay-per-view main event level entrances, and the announcers were really into hyping this as the most anticipated match in AEW history. I don't know if it lived up to that level. I thought it was very good. Kazuchika Okada wins this one in just over 30 minutes to become the first unified champion. I think that it was lofty of AEW to ever expect that these two could live up to the expectations that they set for the match, or that fans could possibly think that this could live up to their previous encounters, especially, the two really, really big ones. I do think, with that being said, that it was Kazuchika Okada's best match in AEW to date. I think that's a tremendously low bar, unfortunately. I have been waiting since Okada debuted in AEW for that signature moment and that signature match where people who haven't watched Okada outside of AEW could finally look and say, okay, I get it now. And friend of the show, longtime contributor to the show, occasional co-host Sean Plichta has been on these shows with me many times, talking about how he hasn't seen Okada in New Japan and doesn't know what to expect out of Okada. And everything that he's seen in AEW of Okada is nothing short of just meh. It's just there. It's mediocre. And so tonight, to me, was really the first opportunity for Okada to show people like Sean what he's capable of. And I think you could argue that he did that. I mean, I thought that this was a really good match by two really good wrestlers. It never quite reached that third gear that their previous matches have. I don't know that we could have expected that it would. I like the story that they told, with them focusing heavily on Okada working over Omega's abdomen with the diverticulitis diagnosis. Thought the announcers, especially Taz, did a good job of really honing in on that and explaining why the stuff that Okada was doing would be really painful. JR joined the crew for this one and was just really, gaga over Okada and his fluidness, the smoothness to his motion. Thought that helped some, build up that character. But I don't know. I don't come out of this feeling like Okada is a made man in AEW. How do you feel, Sean?
No, just to clarify, I was looking up his quote, and it's ambiguous in terms of even it said. Well, I'll just read what he said. Tony said about the titles. I've never said I'm retiring the championships in reference to the Intercontinental and Continental. The unified.
I already hate where it's going.
So he said the unified AEW championship is supposed to represent the take-all nature of the match. But he's talking about, I'm trying to find it here. Trying to find it. just the winner takes all nature of the match. So never before it talked about it a little bit. Never before anyone held 2 belts, but he said that he's not returned. So it is. I believe Okada now has three belts, based on what I just read.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't think it makes sense. It's not how they sold this match.
It's stupid.
I really hope that we find out otherwise, and this is meant to unify those 2 titles, because man, to go from the potential of getting rid of one of the titles, which I thought was a great idea, to in fact adding one would be a punch to the gut. So
he even said the unified title will have its own lineage and everything. And he said we'll be back with the Continental Classic. So I guess whoever wins that will get that title. I think is that how that works? So,
it is, but not good. Not good. That is not what I thought was the purpose of this at all.
That sidebar, just to get back to the match, I thought, obviously Okada's best showing, but not quite what we'd expect out of Okada if we'd watched New Japan. It was very methodical, his attack on Kenny's abdomen. He really worked it over for Kenny had a couple comebacks, a couple spurts. He really sold the diverticulitis, and the announcers did a good job of. I think Russ said he's had it in the past, and I know I think I've said it to people on these shows before. My dad's had it. It's terrible. If you know someone that's had it, it's a miracle that Kenny's in the ring. It can be the symptoms can be mild to crippling, and it's an awful thing to get. My uncle got it. It was devastating for him too. I definitely commend Kenny for working it into a working into a wrestling. I don't think you can hurt someone's diverticulitis through physical contact. I think that's where the wrestling aspect comes into it.
Right.
Unless his surgery area was still tender somehow. I guess we can suspend the disbelief for that part of it. But, we got our best glimpse of what Okada can be so far, I guess. This is like the closest thing we've seen to Okada, but, it seems like he's on that, that Tony Khan vacation for the rest of his career, where he's collecting a check, and if Tony wants him to dial it up a little bit every once in a while, he can. But even this didn't feel like. I mean, it felt like a dial up for sure. I think he had a pretty good singles match a while ago. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but I thought he had a little bit better than this one.
Yeah, he had a decent one with Brody King.
Yeah, I think that was the one, maybe.
But
it just
Corey Dallas Standing noted he thought it was on the higher end of what he expected. What he's saying, reality is they're just past their primes.
I don't think they are either guy. I mean, Kenny Omega's had a 5-star match this year already, so he's not.
Yeah, I think
Okada isn't either. He's not even broken down yet. Okada is on the Nakamura fat check retirement plan.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's the Shinsuke Nakamura special
where he's willing to act like a 6'4" version of the guy in The Hangover, the little guy that goes around saying funny stuff.
Ken Jeong.
Yeah, he's Tony Khan's big Ken Jeong. Even has a T-shirt for it now, but it was. I mean, this is very methodical. I liked it. I mean, it was a good match. I didn't dislike the match, but I was watching, and then the interference came. Like, they're really gonna go to interference before the main event, and I'm just like, why does Don Callis have to be involved in this? It's like just give the people like Kenny Omega and they made it seem like a huge deal that they're facing off and all their storied history and everything, and that they're finally colliding in this ring, and they just gave you the AEW interference special at the end there, and that kind of tarnished it because it was kind of worked where pieces were kind of like a New Japan match where a body part got worked, and then at the end things Omega would speed it up, and they mirrored some of their spots from Dominion, maybe a couple, but it just ended, and it wasn't like it just never got into another gear. They never really built up a lot of drama, except for kicking out of some big Omega kicked out of some big rainmakers.
Yep.
But just the Callus, Omega lands the one-winged angel, which nobody kicks out of, so Callus, pulls the ref. I'm just like, why? You got the main event coming. You're gonna have, everyone's gonna be running into that ring at some point.
It suffered from a lot of what I think, I'd like to be able to point and say just one promotion, but both of our major American promotions right now, both AEW and WWE, overly reliant on the interference. They can't seem to book a main event match without copious amounts of shenanigans, and it gets old.
It's crazy.
All right, Sean, we'll wrap things up with a kind of traditional thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle. But before we run through that, just want to throw this graphic up on the screen here for those of you who are joining us live who may not be a PWTorch VIP member. Anytime is a great time to go VIP, but the summer is an especially great time where we've got this super loaded weekend of wrestling action, a 2-night SummerSlam coming up in just a few weeks, and then AEW's Forbidden Door around the corner. It's a great time to go VIP. You get a whole bunch of exclusive stuff, including the Fix with Todd Martin, the post-event roundtable podcast, which I know Wade and company were recording right around the time we went live. You get Wade Keller hotlines, everything with Rich Fan, who was mentioned earlier on by Sean on this show. Greg Parks Out Loud, which is a version of Greg Parks' column for PWTorch, which he reads out loud as a VIP exclusive show. And you also get to participate in these Wrestling Night in America post shows. We didn't have any VIP members joining us via video tonight, but frequently you'll see VIP members join in and participate in the discussion with us, and that is a feature available only to VIP members. The links are typically available live during the shows on both my written report for PWTorch and usually Wade's as well. Sean, I will let you go ahead and plug what you do for the Torch before we jump in with our overall ratings.
Despite the plug, you might not believe I do have a podcast of my own too. Radican Worldwide, covering. I usually use it to cover New Japan these days because it's New Japan stuff's pretty exhaustive. So make sure you check those out. Usually with my co-host Chris Lansdell, and just check me out in the newsletter. I usually have a column or a cover story every month focusing on all topics, AEW, WWE, or New Japan, and trying to gear up my weekly takes more often. I have a review of the FTR. Speaking of the FTR tonight, the FTR figures, I did a review of those with a video component to it from Jazzverse Vaults. They were, I don't collect a ton of wrestling figures, but I like to, it's fun to review them, and it's been a while since I got into some, and these were really impressive, the level of detail. They actually had their FTR's outfits from their final match against the Briscoes at Final Battle of 22. So that was really cool to see. That trilogy of matches is like my favorite of all time for tag teams. And that unfortunately took place just about a month before Jay tragically passed in a car accident. So it's check that out. I think a lot of people they're limited to 3,000, so they won't be around forever. But check out my review. I went over all of it. I even took them out. I felt like I was sitting taking them off the package because I know how people, like it was. But the box looks like a VHS tape. It even comes out like one. You pull the figures out, nice. like old school. So check out that review too. It was a lot of fun putting that together. So look out for my Radican's takes. I do, I'm gonna try. I've been trying to keep to every week, so different wrestling shorter columns on a wrestling topic, and that's about it.
I left you out of my rundown of VIP shows on purpose because I knew I was going to throw to you to make the plug.
Wade left me out last time I did one of these.
But did he throw to you to plug it or just
no?
Oh, okay. So mine was strategic. It was on purpose because I knew I was going to throw to you to talk about it.
He had given me a see. I'm so gun shy from what Wade does to me. So.
All right. You can find my coverage for the Torch after every AEW pay-per-view and WWE PLE. I do the alt perspective reporting for those shows, and then of course host Wrestling Night in America after these events. Sean, before we sign off, go ahead. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle for All in Texas.
It has to be a thumbs up. Not as good as. I think just because of the ridiculous nature of the main event, not as strong as some of their other shows where it hasn't been as outlandish, but there's a lot of good, that tag. I love that tag match with the Young Bucks and Ospreay and Strickland. The women's match was very good. Omega and Okada was pretty good too. And try to think, there's just nothing offensively terrible. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was pretty skippable. The gauntlets, the tag title match, but the big stuff delivered for the most part. And even pieces of the main event were really well done. But I'm kind of like, at a slight thumbs up. Nothing. I didn't have that great feeling that I've had after some of these shows that they've done, where they've had some great endings and some just overall quality cards.
Yeah, definitely similar thoughts here. I'm a mild thumbs up. I think this is held back from being a resounding thumbs up because of the length, because of some of the length of the some of the length of the undercard matches in particular, and then elements of the main event that I thought didn't work for my taste. But still, there was enough in that main event, like you said, Sean, that I liked, and I like the message that it sends, turning the page going forward with Hangman Adam Page as your world champion, getting the Death Riders out of that main event scene. I think is a net positive overall. Sean, thanks so much for joining me. It was a lot of fun. I know these are long. I know it's a long show and then a long post show, but we got through it. So again, my thanks to you. Thanks to our VIP members. I'll be back here tomorrow night covering WWE Evolution. I believe I will be doing that with Kelly Wells and possibly another co-host as well. We'll have to see. But that's tomorrow night. We'll be talking Evolution and probably throw in some Saturday night's main event in there as well if we're all able to see it prior to then. Of course, because that show was going on while we were on the air here.
I turned my head to the left a couple of times. So I saw Gunther working his leg. So I'm really interested to see, because the match it lasted longer than I anticipated. I was talking about something for about 7 minutes. So
interesting. Okay. So yeah, I'm curious to see. I'm sure the chat will. I'm sure the chat will be talking about that as well as Evolution tomorrow. So hope you'll join us for that. Once again, thanks so much, VIP members. Thanks, Sean. If it's after an AEW pay-per-view, it's Wrestling Night in America. I am Brandon LeClair, and we'll see you again tomorrow night.
Take care, guys.